That's the reason we're happy also to have so many of our friends, well-wishers here this evening. We have planned a short program, introductory, followed by a tour of the facilities here. We hope you enjoy yourself. We're going to enjoy ourselves because we're also happy about the facilities we have to use. At this time, it's my privilege to introduce to you Dr. Emmons, President of Ball State Teachers College.
Dr. McCall and friends of the college, this is another red letter day for Ball State. A dedication is always a culmination, a sort of a fulfillment ceremony. And any dedication, of course, is preceded by a long series of activities and events. They start out with dreams or ideas, and then they grow from felt needs into planning and studying. And the studying and the planning include faculty members and students, architects, and finally individuals who construct buildings from plans, after you get the plans and specifications all set. And then comes, of course, the dedication followed by use. In some instances, the use precedes the dedication, as it has in this instance. My pleasure to present some of the individuals who participated in this planning and in the dreaming. They're here gathered with us, some of them, and others are in the audience. We have told these people they don't need to make speeches, but I hope that when each one of them rises, you will give them some applause, and then we'll proceed with the next. The individual who was responsible for many years of the dreaming and some of the ideas is Paul Williams, the head of the department here for so many, many years. We call him Billy. He came to Ball State in 1921, and he retired in 1958. He was a football official for 12 years, refereed basketball games throughout the state for 30 years, coached practically every kind of sport here, and in addition, for one part of the time, was the dean of men at Ball State. Paul, it's good to have you with us for this building. Will you stand up, please? Another one of our group here is A.L. Phillips, Pete, to most of us. Now, Pete came to Ball State in '38 as the head basketball coach, and he stayed here through all of these rigorous years in a great many different capacities. Now he's a member of the faculty and associate professor of physical education. His real work is in the field of methods in teaching for undergraduates and organization and supervision of physical education courses for graduate students. We were most fortunate that Pete was willing to take his leave of absence and study physical education plants in this country. He spent 9 weeks, traveled 12,500 miles, visited 34 schools or colleges and universities in which new physical education plants have been constructed. And when he came back, he participated in the planning, and I think all of us would agree that this experience he had and the work that he's done is one of the major items that results in the building we have tonight. Pete, will you take a bow? Now, Grace Woody is here because she was the member of the distaff group that helped these men through all these rigorous years that we've been talking about, and we just wanted Grace to be up here with us tonight. Grace, will you stand, please? Mr. Alex Bracken is our board member, president of the board, who has helped us as we planned and worked through and saw these buildings come to fruition. Mr. Bracken. Somewhere in the audience is a representative of the contractor, the F.A. Willem Company, Fred Bussey. Would he stand, please, wherever he is? No building is ever completed without the efforts of the contractor. And Mr. Scholler, Walter Scholler Sr. and Walter Scholler Jr., somewhere, wherever they are, will they please stand? These are our architects. I think I should say about them, they are the individuals in their company that developed the campus plan from 1945 on, and they have seen several of these red letter days on our campus. Well, now a little about the building. This is a new 3-unit building. and meets a long-standing need at Ball State. This area is 120 by 176 feet and provides this space, as you see, for the basketball games, and with the bleachers down, the basketball court for varsity games. But with the bleachers up, many, many kinds of activities. The second unit is really a second gymnasium, which is at our right, an 84 by 50 foot plant, which provides space again for activities. And then the field sports building is a 160 by 310 foot building, which means it's larger than a football field. The building, as we said, was designed by our individuals at the campus who planned and worked together and finally planned with the architect. The building cost $2,350,000. Of that amount, $922,500 came from tax dollars. And the balance, which is $1,327,500, will be paid for as a bond issue paid for by student fees over the next 20 years. The parking lots, which you see next to us and around us, and the streets and the acreage have been provided as part of this total plan, and they become really an integral part of our long-range planning. Well, we're now ready, we feel, for the total instructional program in physical education, for the intramural program, and also for the varsity programs in this new building, which we have needed so long. Thanks for listening to me.
It's my duty, pleasant duty, to tell you a few things about the planning of the building and how it will be used. Dr. Emmons has referred to some of the basic planning. I will only say in connection with planning that many people were involved. He referred to the fact that years ago this type of addition to the facilities in physical education was envisioned. And I went through some of the minutes of the staff meeting a few days ago just to see when we began making specific plans. And in 1956 and 57, we began to get rather specific in some of the meetings that Mr. Williams held. And at this time, we were already outlining two basic problems we had to face up to before we started even planning so we could work with an architect. And this President Emmons had asked us to do. We needed to find out how large the enrollment would be in the future, at least within the near future, so we could think in terms of how many people would be in our program. And second, we had to determine something else, and that is what kind of a program will we have. Now, the first part was relatively easy to determine. It's not, that is, it wouldn't be easy for me and maybe for some of you, but we have experts on the college campus who can figure within 2 or 3 how many students we're going to have next fall. And so they extended this projection into the future, and they say plan for 10,000 students. So we started to work. Mr. Williams will remember this, and Pete Phillips will remember it. And we worked a while, and then they said, by the way, you might change that to 14,000 students. So we altered everything. We began to we had to redevelop our interest in ratio and proportion. And we started working 10 as to 4 as 10 as to 14 as what we had planned for as to what we should plan for. And when we got near the end, and when Mr. Scholler, the architect, said, folks, it's about time to quit fooling around with details now. We're going to have to put these together. Finalize is the word he doesn't use, but this is used some. Finalize this thing so we can get the drawings made and get the contract let. And so at that time we settled the thing, and then someone, I don't know who it was, announced to us, did you plan on 14,000? Well, the present forecast is 17,000. So it kept, and of course since then it's changed considerably one way or the other. This was easy. The more difficult part was planning the kind of program we would have 10 or 15 years from now. It makes a difference. If everybody's going to do calisthenics, you have one kind of a shape of room. If they're all going to play basketball, you need another kind of shape. So we had to discuss what will physical education be in the future, in the next 10, 15 years. What kind of areas do we need? And here was the most fun because we have a number of people on our staff, and almost all of them have different ideas. When you get into opinions, they have the right opinions and the wrong opinions. You know, their opinions and your opinions. And so this gave us a chance to get much better acquainted with each other. But extensively is the word to use when we say the staff participated in planning of the building. We had to define the purpose of physical education and then go the next step and say, what are the means whereby we attain this purpose? What kind of program? Here's the two things we needed to do. First, what is our program to be 10 years from now, 15 years from now, and farther? Second, what kind of a building do we need to house that program? And when we get that, when we decide what kind of building we need to house the program, then we're ready to talk with the architect and the various people involved in making the final plan. I'm not going to talk about the field sports building, the third unit, and some of these other areas because time is short. And at this time, I would like to introduce our Director of Intercollegiate Athletics, Mr. Robert Primer.
Mr. Bracken, President Emmons, good friend Billy, Miss Woody, friends, ladies and gentlemen, real thrill for me to be asked to speak a few minutes, especially with our good friend Billy Williams here, who planned Ball Gym a few years ago that is still standing like the Rock of Gibraltar. I think many of us comment that work there say, whoever planned this building certainly did a wonderful job. And I'm sure some of the fellow staff members will remember 2 or 3 years ago, before this plant was a reality, one evening we were surprised with some unexpected guests from the various, I suppose the legislature or wherever it might have been. Nevertheless, they weren't our people. And as they walked into Ball Gym, we couldn't have rehearsed the thing any better, because in the balcony, if you'll remember Ball Gym, the ROTC was practicing. And on the main floor, Coach Hinga was having varsity basketball practice and freshman basketball practice. And over on the side, Coach Mihal was having wrestling practice. And down at the other end, gymnastics practice, all on this same floor. And they came through and they thought we'd rehearsed it, we'd planned it. And really, I suppose that was a wonderful occasion when those people came through and saw this going on. But this is a wonderful experience. I want to take this opportunity to thank President Emmons and all the people involved in making this a reality. I suppose I should say that we probably won't lose any games or any athletic contests at all in such a wonderful facility as this. In your tour, I hope you can visualize, for example, in the field house, which some people call Unit 3, with the dirt floor, I hope you can visualize a 220-yard track where we can have indoor track meets and the track team can work out. I hope you can visualize something that Coach Louthan is quite pleased that hasn't arrived as yet. That's like the trophies that usually aren't here when we're having a celebration like this. But 5 batting cages for the batters and the pitchers to work out. The pitchers shouldn't lose a game. And also a netted infield. Now this is built so the track team can work out, and also the golfers can have their practice and so forth and so on. And just this fall, with the weather and the dryness and the lack of rainfall, the field house was used for football practice many days. I hope you can visualize on your tour in what Dr. McCall called Unit 2, one of the finest gymnastics areas in the United States, I'm sure. And also, I hope you can see the wrestling rooms where they practice. Of course, when we have the meets, we'll have those out here. Also, tennis practice on the balconies indoors. Basketball games, of course. But we have a lot to be thankful for. I'm sure that all of us are going to appreciate this wonderful facility. And we hope all of you will take the opportunity to come and witness the various intercollegiate events. In fact, Earl Yestingsmeyer told me today to please remind you that the basketball season tickets are already on sale. And we at Ball State, I think, are extremely fortunate to have the University of Michigan come here and dedicate this wonderful building with a basketball game. Thank you very much. And again, for the coaches and for the staff members, thank you.
Thank you, Bob. We have one other person very important to this occasion. He represents the student body, and that's Mr. Don Payton, who's president of the senior class, is a minor in physical education, a member of the varsity soccer team and the varsity gymnastics team. Mr. Payton.
Thank you very much, Dr. McCall. It's really an honor and a privilege for me to be able to represent the entire Ball State student body this evening. I'd like to say just a couple of things from the students' viewpoint about the buildings this evening. When I say buildings, I'm referring to Unit 1, Unit 2, and the field sports building as being separate buildings. And the things you've heard so far have been mostly from the educator and administrator's point of view. And I'd like to point out a few of the things that the students feel about the opportunities that will be afforded us with the addition of these new structures. Basically, the new facilities here are a tremendous asset to the recreational life of all the students attending Ball State College. Everyone now has a chance to participate in intramurals with the new buildings we have, whereas before we lacked the space, and on many occasions the intramural department was forced to use Burris Laboratory School because of the cramped facilities. Also, the women in physical education were slighted. We just didn't have the room, the proper space, the proper facilities to carry on an adequate program of intramural activity. So now I know from speaking with several of the students here at the college that the participation in intramurals is probably going to be record-breaking this year because there will be more of an opportunity for everyone to get a chance to participate. Those who don't wish to participate in organized activities can also take advantage of the free recreational periods. Now, by free recreational periods, I mean that the facilities are available. The facilities are free for people to do such activities as shoot basketball, play tennis, or work out on some of the gymnastics apparatus. All the students here at Ball State are appreciative of the opportunities which are now afforded to those of them who are not currently in the physical education area as a major or a physical education minor or participating in a varsity sport. Now, to say a little bit about those students who are participating in physical education as a major or a minor, these people are particularly thrilled about the buildings because now many of these students can catch up on some of the classes in which they were behind. Some classes they hadn't been able to schedule because the facilities just weren't available. Scheduling for classes is now easier and the facilities aren't so cramped. And one real fine example that I can show is the gymnastics area, which is now more or less a permanent area. The gymnastics apparatus are available at all times for students to use, to make use of, and as it was in the past, whenever physical education classes were held for gymnastics, the apparatus had to be taken from the storage area, placed in the area to be used, and then at the end of the period, returned to the storage area. This took away from valuable instruction time that the students could have received. Now this time can be utilized. Lastly, I'd like to say one or two things about the varsity athletes and the varsity athletic program. The areas for the various varsity sports used to overlap because of the improper conditions, crowding of facilities, and now all these sports and all the athletes get a proper chance to practice in their particular field. Recently, the football team made use of the field sports building, and they found this was really a big help when the ground outside was so hard that it was causing a lot of injuries to the players on the football team. Practice was moved to the inside of the field sports building, and that alleviated several problems that were caused by the necessity of practicing outside on the hard ground. All in all, I'd like to say that we students want it known that we are cognizant of the fact that this is definitely a giant step towards education. a step which will benefit us directly and benefit the students we teach indirectly. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Don. Well, we're on schedule. For the first 4 weeks in this building, all the clocks said 6:30. And so we're happy to see them running. That was one of the last things we got fixed. And so all of us have learned not to be clock watchers by now. But we were supposed to have a tour at 8 o'clock, and I have 2 or 3 suggestions here to make. Dr. Robert Korsgaard has arranged with the students and with the various faculty of the Physical Education Department to have demonstrations going on. In fact, as soon as you people don't leave yet, but as soon as you leave those bleachers up there, we're going to demonstrate the fact that they can be folded back to 41 inches, and we will have tennis being demonstrated on the balcony where you now sit in just a few minutes. We don't plan to fold these. We will have badminton here and wrestling in the wrestling room and volleyball on the south balcony or the north balcony, gymnastics and basketball and single wall handball and track out in the field sports building and various other things. As you go about the building, we want you to enjoy yourself. Feel free to ask questions of anyone, and we know the answer to some of them. Thank you so much for coming out this evening. As I say again, this is a happy occasion. We're glad you're here to help us be happy about it. Thank you. It's been suggested you might feel there are restrictions. There are not. You may go into the locker rooms, the training rooms, the shower rooms, all where the doors are open. We've cleared the fellows out of there, I think. So go on in, girls.
When a player is injured, this is where they end up for treatment. And Bud Miller, who is an assistant professor of training, takes care of most of the injuries and does what he can to put them back in good shape. Bud, tell us about your new facilities. How do you like them?
Very fine. This is one of our 3 rooms here, the hydrotherapy room. And our facilities are back here, and this here is Fred Dwardy, our student trainer.
Does Fred give you a lot of help?
Oh, yes.
Fine.
One of my 5 or 6 student trainers that I have working for me.
Mm-hmm. What is this equipment back here?
Right back here in the corner here, we have our sitz chair, which we take baths here for the lower extremity. Here is our steam cabinet, mainly used by our coaches, I think, right at the present time, but we use it for several different reasons here, and for many of our fellows use it. And we have our shower back in here, in which we shower off the fellows after they get done using one of our treatments here. Fred can explain the rest.
And over here we have our 2 whirlpools, which is used the most of all, which is lower extremity, and it's coming to the upper with the arms. And over there we have the paraffin bath, which is used for hands and quick injuries that we could use on the paraffin.
What does the whirlpool do?
Well, it's a loosening up of the sore muscles and the strains on the arms or ankles or the thighs, mostly. It's used the most of all of our physical, or our hydro room here.
And how about the paraffin bath?
Well, the paraffin bath isn't used too much. We haven't used it too much this year, but we're experimenting with it yet, and still we haven't quite used it yet this year yet. I haven't, anyhow.
We're still talking with Bud Miller, who is trainer here at Ball State, and we're in the training rooms. Bud, this fellow is...
This is Terry Frank. He's from LaPorte, and another one of my student trainers.
I see. Now, they are student trainers for how long a period?
Well, Terry's been with me since his freshman year, and a lot of them are here, most of them are for 4 years. They're interested in going into the field of athletic training. This is one of the best ways they can do it.
Terry, tell us about this machine here.
This is a diathermy. It's used for heat treatment. And this area with these 3 tables here are used for the treatments such as bruises and strains and sprains and stuff like that. And it's usually for a longer period of time, 20 to 30-minute treatments. And that's why this area is used for mostly heat treatments. And over here is an ultrasound machine, which is also used for heat treatments. And over there in the corner are heat lamps, ultraviolet and infrared lamps. And they're all used for about the same purpose as heats on bruises, strains, things such as that.
What are kept in the cabinets and the drawers?
That's most of our supplies, just about anything you can think of, or bandages, pre-tape, and alcohol, isoquin, and foot powder, and just you name it, and it's in there, stored.
Terry, what are those unusual short tables over against the wall?
Those two over there are part of our physical therapy, and those particular two tables are used for knee injuries. The PRE treatments is what we call them, physical exercise treatments.
What is that unusual wheel on the wall?
That is for shoulder. That's physical therapy for the shoulder. That long board there with the little notches on, that's also used for the shoulder.
How is that used?
The individual will stand next to it and take his fingers and just climb straight up, and it involves the muscles of the shoulders, and they'll interact, and it really exercises them.
Now, over here we have three short tables with little boxes on the end of the table. What is the purpose of those?
Those are taping, mostly for taping ankles and blisters and the smaller treatments that we do. It's not, it's a short period of time.
Now we have a fellow being taped. What sort of an injury would he have? Can you diagnose from here?
From here it looks like he's a gymnast, and he's been on parallel bars too much, and he's got blisters on his hands, and we're putting protective padding on it.
Is that a frequent occurrence with the gymnast?
Right. It's almost everyday occurrence.
Bud, what is your commonest injury?
Well, I think mostly are sprains, strains, and contusions. They're all three probably the most grouped together as one big common injury group that we have. We don't have as many fractures, but of course they're dislocations, but they're the serious